Could he really face the death penalty? He's the TikTok sensation, the all-American dream who could do no wrong. Only 21 years old, rich beyond his wildest dreams, and famous among the Gen Z generation and even younger, with a house in the Hollywood Hills. But it's all gone wrong, badly wrong. David Anthony Burke, otherwise known as the singer David, faces first-degree murder and possibly a lethal injection. Hey, we've got a Patreon. It's a weekly membership subscription murder club that you can join.
You get extra video and you get some of the writing that Martin and I subscribe to. And if you want to join, the link is in the description of the episode. Exclusive.
Welcome to this episode of This Much is True Crime, where we're looking again at a particular case that's very topical in the news at the moment. I'm Martin Frizzell, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Emeritus Professor of Criminology, David Wilson.
Hello, Martin.
He started off as there's quite a few of them now. He started off as a gamer,
Yeah.
as well known for playing Fortnite and filming himself doing it.
Yeah.
On TikTok, he's a massive sensation. He's then gone into music, and he's a superstar for a lot of young people. But he's only 21 years old. He lives or lived in a house in the Hollywood Hills, which used to be owned by Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
He's renting it. It costs around £20,000 a month. So he's living the dream, but it's all gone sour because of a fan, a besotted fan. Trouble is, she was very young.
14 years old. Seemingly she got first in touch with David when she was 13. This is Celeste Rivas Hernandez. And I've been very interested in how her parents have put into the public domain a material that one would not normally expect to see at this stage in any prosecution, any trial. But they did so deliberately because they didn't want her to be forgotten. That's what they said. We don't want Celeste to be forgotten and subsumed, as it were, by all the interest that there will be in David and what he has done or is accused of having done.
Well, she went to go and live with him, and it all went sour when she disappeared, basically, and people didn't know where she'd gone. David had gone on tour, and it turned out there was his abandoned Tesla car, again, in the Hollywood Hills, which police put a ticket on. And then it was taken to the pound. And a few days later, because of the smell coming from it, the yard alerted the police, and the police found in the front trunk of the Tesla 2 bags containing the human remains of Celeste.
And so this is, so she, her body was decomposing, and she had clearly, her body had been cut up. But this was way back in September last year that the body, her body was found.
He was on tour. He'd gone off on tour.
And so one of the things I'm still trying to get my head around, I suppose, is why it's taken so long for the murder charge to have been brought against David. And I imagine that's because it was going contemporaneously with other investigations that the Californian police were making in relation to other criminal acts that David is believed to have been involved with.
Well, there's 3 sets of charges. I mean, all incredibly serious for David, who is in custody now, not on bail. He's denying it all. The first is first-degree murder with special circumstances of lying in wait. Now, I'd never heard of that before. What does lying in wait mean?
He is going to be seen to have encouraged her to come to him so that he was then able to, as is alleged, murder her because he's going to try, as from what I understand of what the prosecutors are saying, he wanted to silence Celeste because Celeste would be a witness to other things that David is alleged to have done with minors.
And of course, it does sound that there was consensual activity here, in the sense that I think they both had matching tattoos. He wrote a song about Celeste. So there's clearly an affection there for this young girl who has gone to his house, but clearly a young girl way below the age of
and
consent here.
well, you were saying consent, and remember, a child cannot consent to have a sexual relationship with somebody who would be legally described as an adult, and therefore, the idea that she could consent to what was happening is
Agree.
She's
too young to.
She's too young to be able to do that. So there's all those kinds of things. You were talking about the American dream in your introduction. He's therefore suddenly living in a lifestyle. Sandra Bullock's house in the Hollywood Hills. He's suddenly living a lifestyle, going on tour, having millions of people follow him on TikTok and on social media, and all of that.
Who's managing him? I mean, I can't believe that no one saw a 14-year-old girl in the house. Did no one say, hang on, what are we doing here? Is this a good idea?
Have you ever heard of Michael Jackson? Who was managing Michael Jackson? There were kids sleeping over in Michael Jackson's house. Nobody denies that that they saw children 9, 10, 11 years old sleeping in Michael Jackson's house. Michael Jackson had housekeepers. Michael Jackson had staff. Michael Jackson had managers. So this isn't the first time we're dealing with this kind of celebrity meets.
But like David, Michael Jackson's denying anything to do in terms of children underage. He always denied it.
He always denied it.
Just to say that.
Well, he always denied it, but there is no doubt that a number of young men have subsequently come forward with compelling stories of the abuse that they experienced and were subsequently settled out of court in relation to those stories of sexual abuse.
But not convicted, no convictions against him in terms of that. We're just making that very clear. Likewise, as I said, David, D4vd's, is denying this. So denying the first-degree murder charge. Also, the second charge, additional special circumstances of alleged murder for financial gain.
Okay. That would be to keep, I imagine that's to keep his business empire.
Yep. He's accused of murdering the 14-year-old to maintain his lucrative musical career.
Yeah.
And that Celeste was threatening on that particular night, to go public.
Again, how I would read the reporting that's been made. And remember, of course, we're people who are brought up on Scottish and English law, and there will be particular ways that charges are framed in the United States that are alien to how we would describe them. But the one thing that came across from reading about these various charges that David is facing is that often in the American criminal justice system, one will see a kind of overcharging of the defendant in the belief that if we don't get the defendant on that charge, there will still be other charges that a jury might find him guilty of, which will allow us to punish him.
The third charge is murdering a witness to an investigation. So is that like murdering Celeste twice for what she witnessed? And of course, she can't give evidence now. The evidence being that Rivas Hernandez was a witness in an investigation of sexual acts committed by Burke.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's. And we're back to my point about the overcharging. Should one of the charges fail, it may be that other of the charges will convince the jury beyond reasonable doubt. That's what I think is going on. And I think what is being implied in what the prosecution are saying and what those charges are leading us to believe is that Celeste was a witness to other things that David had done, presumably with minors, that he would not want to go. He would not want to become public.
Yeah, you're right. It's the charges involve numerous sexual acts with a minor and the mutilation of a body.
Was the mutilation of the body, though, not Celeste? I mean, I've always presumed that's Celeste's body that charge relates to, but, who knows? There does seem to be overcharging. There is confusion at the moment, and we're discussing this for all kinds of reasons, because we always say on the podcast, we're trying to do cases that are in the public eye, and sometimes because we're doing it almost as it unfolds, a lot of the things are unclear in relation to what did or did not happen, what might or might have occurred.
I mean, he's got hotshot lawyers, as you'd imagine. He's got money, and he has a lawyer who in the past has appeared for Kanye West,
Yeah.
Lindsay Lohan, and Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
So he knows his way around the DA and what goes on in Los Angeles. I think they've also put into place a procedural 10-day rule, which is forcing the prosecution to come up with everything they know to prove to the judge there's a case to be answered here. And if they haven't got it within 10 days, there's a danger the case may collapse. So it's presuming, and you just presume the prosecution have got all their ducks in a row for this.
No, you shouldn't presume that. And also that's, I think, indicative of the overcharging and the multiple charging and the cross-charging that one sees that's gone on at this stage. However, factor in the police have known about this because Celeste remains were found way back in September last year. So quite clearly there has been a number of investigations ongoing prior to that and since that time, prior to those charges being brought. So there will be some ducks in their row lined up, ready to go, but not all of them. The big thing will also be to what extent, if the prosecution feels that they have enough evidence, will they actually ask for the death penalty?
And that would be lethal injection in California.
Well, the strange thing is California, yes, the lethal injection, although there will be some right of the person who is to be executed might be able to influence what kind of execution they will have. But in California, there's been a moratorium on executions since the early noughties. So that I think the last we're doing the podcast really as we're learning about all these things. And so I haven't been able to bottom out when the last execution was for real, but at the back of my memory, it was 2006. I mean, you go back a long way before it's a good 2 decades since California actually executed someone. But interestingly enough, California has one of the biggest death rows in the United States. There are lots of people on death row. It's just that there's a moratorium on actually going through with the execution.
You always think of it as the most liberal state, don't you?
Well, you think of it as the most liberal state now, but there was a time when it wasn't liberal. But now it is, and quite clearly you've got Gavin Newsom as the governor, and it would be Newsom's kind of shout in many ways.
Well, that'll be interesting, won't it? Because this is going to drag on clearly for quite some time. There's no way it's going to trial anytime soon. I'd have thought there's going to be a long delay, which gets you into midterms, past the midterms, and then you start to think about who are the new presidential candidates, of which Newsom may well be one.
And one of the weaknesses that often,
and if he has a pardon or a death charge sheet on his desk with a young man who has an amazing following of young people who could be voters, what does he do?
Well, and that's the thing, you see, the Republicans have always identified the Democrats as being soft on crime. And in fact, you hear Trump accusing Newsom even now of being soft on crime. And if you think back a few months, Trump put in the National Guard in Los Angeles, a way of saying Newsom can't handle these situations. We, the Republicans, we can handle it. And again, if you go back even further in American history, you will have Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton supported the death penalty, and Bill Clinton was quite clear that his support for the death penalty was a way of silencing Republican conservatives who said, oh, the Democrats are always on the side of the killer, always on the side of the criminal, not on the side of the victim. Well, Clinton was quite clearly somebody who did support. In fact, whilst he was on the campaign trail, again, I'm doing this from memory, he signs the death warrant of a man on death row in Oklahoma called Ricky Ray Rector, who had a very low IQ, and to the extent that when Ricky Ray, the prisoners on death row get to choose their last meal, and Ricky Ray Rector chose a particular pudding for his last meal, and just literally minutes before his execution, the guard said, "Do you want your pudding?" And he said, "No, I'll save it for later." It's he was that he had that low an IQ. Again,
Well,
interesting.
it wasn't even like a sense of humor. That was just, he just didn't understand what was happening.
Didn't understand what was
Oh,
happening
God.
to him. And again, if you think about the kind of global politics of that, if you take that out of American politics, one of the things that that Tony Blair learned a lot about whilst in opposition, he was Home Secretary. He was the shadow Home Secretary because John Smith was the leader of the Labour Party. Tony Blair went over to Oklahoma, went over to the United States, learned a great deal from Bill Clinton in relation to how to manage Labour's position, new Labour's position on crime and punishment. And of course, what do we know about New Labour and their position on crime and punishment? They were going to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime.
I remember Clinton coming over to the Labour Party conference in Blackpool, and it was like all hail the king, clearly very friendly with Blair and New Labour, and so he was part of that whole kind of scene. But just finally on the whole fandom thing, which is, there's always been fans, but it just seems that fandom now, because of social media, has taken on this much more sinister, I think, position now, where you have people who are earning so much money now because of the fans, because they have a following on social media. Are they being managed properly? Now, David is denying all the charges, denying he murdered Celeste, but you do wonder who's advising them, who's managing these people, who's actually looking at, I mean, who allowed him, for instance, to have a 14-year-old? And I know you're talking about Michael Jackson, but surely flags should have been raised, or who's at fault here for allowing all this to get as far as it has?
Well, I think, you see, that's good. Normally, you're the one that's saying that anybody accused of these things should take personal responsibility. And what you're doing is that...
Well, he's 21.
Well,
I mean, he's a kid.
Well, what you're doing is you're expanding that and saying, actually, responsibility is more diffuse than one would imagine. And when that responsibility becomes caught up with extreme wealth and a business, then that makes it even more difficult, because people...
And sycophants around you who won't say no.
Exactly. It becomes harder and harder and harder to manage, and harder to keep a sense of reality. And that's the thing that struck me here, a sense of reality. Imagine being 21 and living in Sandra Bullock's house and being able to pay $20,000 pounds a month.
Yeah.
I mean, that is going to turn your thinking in a completely different way, isn't it? And also what that does psychologically, it gives you a sense of invincibility, a sense of being able to do whatever it is that you want to do, and there are no consequences. And again, your serious point was one in which he's 21. We know that the adult brain hasn't fully developed until you're about 25, 26. So, and again, I imagine that should he eventually be found guilty, that will be one of the things that will be used in mitigation. This is a young man given great wealth incredibly quickly and not able to handle the circumstances in which he found himself. But all that time we're talking about David.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not forget the victim.
Yeah.
This is a young girl who followed the dream,
who
followed her idol.
Yeah.
And where did it get her? It got her, chopped up into bits in 2 bags in front of a Tesla with no power, just dumped by the side of the road.
I mean, it is, and again, I mean, I understand these are simply accusations at this moment, but if you were to think of what he is alleged to have done, that is like going from 0 to 100 miles an hour in relation to murder, to the mutilation, the dumping, it's just.
And I mean, he denies it, but could one person, whoever did this, I mean, you'd have to be a butcher, wouldn't you? I mean, would you have been able to do that yourself? I mean, surely this feels like the work of several people.
Well, people
certainly covering up.
You don't. Well, the cover up wasn't very good because it was in his Tesla, wasn't it? But cutting up a body takes time and it's not easy. And although mutilation is becoming more common in terms of murder, but it takes time and it takes expertise. And so I don't rule out that there may have been other people who were involved, but that has not been raised at all as a possibility by David's defense.
So we thought it only right that we actually listen to some of what David, the singer, has recorded and is talking about. And his big hit was called Romantic Homicide. Listen to it at the end of our discussion and see what you think. But we've watched the video, read the lyrics. What did you think, Professor Wilson?
Well, knowing American Prosecutors as I do.
Not a great song, to be honest. It was recorded in one take and captured the flow of his emotions. And he just talked about killing in it.
He absolutely does.
But he means killing a memory.
Killing a memory. It's about a breakup of a relationship. It's about not caring and trying to put that out of his mind, the memories that he had of the relationship, and disassociating himself from that relationship.
Well, he's explaining that the hook, in the back of my mind, I killed you, represents a big moment where he stops caring about a person, letting their memory die in his mind rather than physically harming them. So that's quite innocent, isn't it?
Well, I'm afraid the way things go in the United States and how lyrics are used, especially rap lyrics, although this isn't rap, it's sort of singing rap, isn't it? I'm afraid an American prosecutor would probably think that that gives a great insight into how David handles relationships that he feels no longer are worth his investment. He kills the memory. And but then we're back into this territory, aren't we? About, can you separate the art from the artist? It's something we've returned to time after time. And he's 18 years old.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
He's 18 years old when this gets recorded, but it is dealing with themes of murder. It is dealing with themes of death. It is dealing with themes of disassociating himself from a relationship that he's been in and simply moving on. I also thought what was interesting about the lyric, and I know I'm a professor and you're going to just shout at me, is that how he places the narrative from his perspective of him being a victim. He's very, the narrative, the drive of the lyric is of him having something done to him as opposed to him doing something to others.
Well, it says it's about a breakup, and he says, quote, in the lyrics, I didn't even cry, not a single tear. And that refers to reaching a point of emotional detachment where the pain of the breakup has passed. And the feeling is simply, and again, he used the words, I hate you. So there's all these very strong passages in there that you're right. If someone really, a prosecutor really wants to drive that home, this is a young man who is using these kind of words. What kind of mental state is he in?
And so, but then my kind of memory, you're absolutely right. But when Eric Clapton sings, I shot the sheriff, he didn't actually shoot the sheriff. It is a song. So there's a sense in which, how fair is it to latch onto these lyrics, to latch onto this kind of emotional state that he is singing in and describing the breakup of a relationship? How fair is it to say that that can be equated to real life?
This is going to be a trial. If it gets to trial, of course, he's denying it. That's going to take some time before it comes before a judge properly and a jury, isn't it? So this is going to be interesting in terms of how America takes this with a young, famous man, 21 years old, possibly facing lethal injection of the death penalty.
And let's see which charges stick and which charges ultimately get pleaded down and out. And let's see what the prosecutors are going to reveal in the days to come. But let's not forget, we must never forget the 14-year-old girl, Celeste, who is murdered.
She was just following her dream, I suppose, going to see her idol. It's weird that she ended up living with him. Very weird indeed. But still, that doesn't stop the fact that, she should not have ended up, cut up into pieces in 2 bags in the trunk of his car.
Absolutely not.
We'll follow this. This is going to run and run, as they say. For the time being, Professor, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, thanks for watching and listening. It would really help us if you could click subscribe. It would really mean a lot to my children, my family, quite frankly.
And it helps us grow.
Do I sound desperate?
We're not trying to do this just to support the Frizzels. This is to help the podcast grow. So please, please join us, subscribe to us. It doesn't cost a penny.